Whether you're just starting out in real estate investing or already making strides, the Investor Evolution podcast is tailored for you. Come along as we tackle these questions directly and deliver practical insights to empower your journey in the realm of real estate investing. All right, everyone, thank you so much and welcome back to the Investor Evolution podcast. I'm excited to have you here this week because you have a special treat with our guest of the week. And we're going to start off with a bang for our guest series. So today I want to introduce you to Jason Bates, and he is the CEO and founder of Venture Vibes. He's also the co-owner of Nationwide Notary Pro, as well as the co-owner and chief of staff of Finish Line TC Services. So he is doing a lot of things. He is a creative TC, he's a capital raiser, he's a business owner, and I am excited to have you on today. So welcome and thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate that you're giving a voice to people out there in the podcast community. I think that's powerful. And I'm glad to see, more people like you doing that. Letting people know that not only is investing essential, but it can be easy. Like I know we're growing up to believe that everything we're doing should be difficult. And so it can be rewarding, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And just getting the word out there to let people know that it doesn't matter if you have a 9-to-5 job, it doesn't matter if you're a full-time parent, there is a way to make passive income out there. It's just where you want to focus your energy on, right? And that's really, I think, what your podcast is about with the mindset is where do you focus that energy and how does that energy come back to you in a way that makes you and your family successful?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. So one of the things I want to start with is as investors, we come in and some of us know exactly where we're going and we hit the ground running and we just go. But for a lot of us, me included, sometimes it takes a little bit to really find where your place and your space is in this realm. So I'd love to hear from you how you got into real estate investing and how your journey has evolved as you've learned and as you've grown in this space.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it was the night of Thanksgiving, November 2022. So I was sitting and watching YouTube videos and Pace had all of his content on there, right? And so I had been looking at my 401k. I had a fourplex that I bought conventionally. I used my VA loan so that I could qualify for that. And then I'm just looking at it. I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't scale if I have to go out and get a conventional loan every time I want a property. I'm looking at my 401k and going, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to be enough to retire on. I'll be lucky if I get Social Security. I know my son probably won't. Really, what is the best avenue for building not only passive income, but building a portfolio such that you can lean on that. You don't have to depend on a W-2. You don't have to depend on working for somebody else. And so that Friday, I joined Sub 2 and I said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. My business partner and I said, we're just going to focus the next 6 months on single family homes because, you go into that vault and there's just so many things to learn and then you get that object syndrome. So we just said, okay, for 6 months, we're going to focus on buying single family. So last year we bought 2 properties subject to 2 seller finance. We sold one of them on a wrap at the end of the year because it just wasn't cash flowing. I bought that when I was so new that I really didn't know how to underwrite the front end properly. So we sold that. So now at least I'm making money off of it as the bank. But more importantly, I came to a realization that I'm very impatient and buying at one door at a time just wasn't happening fast enough. So this year I've shifted my focus to more of the multifamily. And that's why I went into raising private capital. So what Venture Vibes Fund is it really allows me to allow people who want to get into real estate. They're not an owner operator. They like the returns that people are getting on multifamily, but they really like the vibe I have of going after RV parks and other vacation type properties because we really want to get into the business of providing experiences, but more importantly, we want to deal with guests. We don't want to deal with tenants, right? So nobody's ever packed up their kids and their whole family and gone to hang out at an apartment complex, but they packed up their whole family and they went and hung out at an RV park and they had an experience and they enjoyed the local food. They enjoyed the local scenery. And so they go home feeling better than when they came. And to me, that's really where I got my investment spark is I want to provide this for more people, not just RV owners, but people who want that RV lifestyle experience but may not necessarily own an RV. So what can I do for them? Can I let them rent an RV for the night? Can I put in a tiny home village so they get that same experience? So I'm finding there's a lot of popularity in that. So that's kind of where my fund is focused on, is allowing people to invest in things like that. So that's been my change for 2024. Now, another thing I went down the path of was I became a Gator lender about 6 months after being a sub 2 student. And then, of course, I became a top tier TC in August. Mm-hmm. I started to go back to layers of that onion, and I went, oh my gosh, what Molly and Ashley are teaching, I can help so many investors. And that's why I added the TC portion, of my business, partnered with Finish Line TC Services, because all they do is bring in top tier certified TCs and just haven't looked back. And I was able to provide so much value that they did give me an equity share in March of this year. So I'm really honored to say that I'm helping them build up that part of the business, and more importantly, helping investors like you and I who want to get into real estate or have questions about real estate or want to close their first or their 100th transaction. We help all of them.
Right. I love that. And what I love is you came in, you tried something, and you did it. You dove into it for 6 months and found out like, okay, maybe that's not quite for me, but you were able to then take all those experiences and all that learning and move it into the next phase. So I love that. Let's talk about the TC realm. As far as for that piece of the transaction, it really is the inner workings, like what's really going on in the transaction. What sparked your interest in that? What really made you want to dive in and be a part of that piece of the transaction in addition to the other part?
That's a great question. And let me give you a little bit about my past as a W-2 employee. So I've spent most of my career as a project and or program management for big companies, big multi-million dollar government contracts, medical devices, commercial aerospace, you name it. And they all have the same formula, right? You have a list of deliverables. You have a detailed schedule. You have stakeholder management. You have risk management. So you've got all these things that go into a project and all of the things you have to do to get it completed, on schedule, within budget, within the highest quality. So then I started looking at transactions and I go, oh my gosh, this is exactly like project management. I am taking a transaction and I treat it like it's a 30-day project. And within that 30 days, I have a list of deliverables. I have a purchase and sale agreement, right? I have, title commitments and HUD statements and lien searches, and all the things I have to do going into the transaction. Then I have all the things coming out of the transaction. Mm-hmm. So much like project management, we even use project management software to track each transaction so we know nothing falls through the cracks. Right. So really, it was really easy to make that leap from managing multi-year, multi-million dollar programs for major government entities to just going, hey, I've got a dozen or 2 dozen little mini projects that go 30 days in length, and I track them all as a mini project anyways, because I have stakeholder management. I have to keep the seller, the buyer, the PML, the gator, the title company. I got to keep them all informed. And then a list of deliverables. So I have to check each box that, we've gone through everything, and the seller has everything they need to close. The buyer has everything they need to close. The PML has everything they need to close, all that stuff. Of course, you're managing the risks. So you're going, well, where can this deal go south, and who can I talk to make sure it doesn't happen? And so all of those things kind of come into fruition. And then, of course, it's a lot easier because it's quicker. But what makes project management and transaction coordinating so powerful is no 2 days are the same. I wake up every morning and I'm dealing with a different transaction, with a different possible issue, or even a different possible outcome where we can even close earlier because we found a way to shortcut the process without, changing the quality of the transaction. Mm-hmm. We just found a couple of things we could do in parallel that allow us to close sooner. So there's always opportunity to learn each transaction, but more importantly is no 2 days are the same and no 2 transactions are the same. So it really makes transaction coordination an exciting part of the business, especially if you're brand new to real estate and you just want to learn what that process is. Understanding what goes on behind the curtain at the title company, that is huge, right? That's usually the black hole for most people. Think about it like a black box on an aircraft, right? It has so much data, but nobody knows the inner workings of that. Well, that's the same thing in the title company. So many moving parts there, but most investors don't know what happens behind the scenes there. we do so we can navigate that transaction and make sure that you're at the top of their list. Because as you know from experience, they have hundreds of files, and you really aren't a priority until you close. So, but for my client, they're my priority, and I'm the squeaky wheel on their behalf. And so, it really has been fun to represent different clients in different phases of the transaction to the title.
And I love that you are able to take, your experience from the W-2 and then move it into this world. We were talking a little bit before we started about how we all have those experiences, whether we have a whether we're a stay-at-home mom, whether we're homeschooling, all of those things that we can pull in. And I want you to touch on that a little bit. How can we take those other experiences that we have and use that to our advantage here in this real estate space?
That's a great question. Let's just start with stay-at-home parents, whether they're mom or dad.
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts for running a household, right? There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're coordinating activities, you're planning schedules, you're planning dinner schedules, outing schedules. You're making sure homework's done. You're making sure people are to bed at a certain time, up at a certain time. You're doing conflict resolution. So you're doing the things running a household that you would do running a business. No different than having a W-2, right? If you're leading teams, if you're running projects, if you're helping an organization build their bottom line, you can do the exact same thing for your own business. You just now building your own bottom line versus somebody else's. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. We've spent our whole life building skill sets to make other people rich. We can take those same skill sets and make ourselves rich if we just apply those same things. So when someone says, I don't know how to start or run a business, you actually do. You might not know the inner workings of setting up an LLC or keeping track of the books, but there are experts, people out there, and you just incorporate that as part of your cost of business so that your overall business runs those costs. So that's less things you have to do. My favorite thing about having a business is figuring out how I can make myself unemployed, meaning that the more things I can delegate and the more things I can pass on to other people, the more I can focus on the 30,000-foot view and really make an impact. So yeah, that's the message, right? You guys have all the skills necessary to run a business. You just have to overcome the limiting belief that says, I've never run a business before. And your brain takes all these files from the back of your head and puts it in front of you and says, remember all those times you tried something new and you fell on your face? Are you sure you want to start a business? And then you have that honest conversation with yourself and says, absolutely, I'm going to move forward with this because I'm going to take the things I don't know and work with people who have done it before, because if someone can do it once, it can be done again. So I can mirror someone who's been successful in this realm, right, and or delegate this to someone. Like I can just hire someone from day one who can set up the books right the first time, can be ready for me to start bringing in revenue, and can hit it from the go. So the point is just admit what you don't know and be willing to either learn or delegate it to somebody who already has that knowledge and can fast track you like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So a couple of books are coming to mind as you're talking. So Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. We all know people who can do these various things. And maybe, like you said, we want to learn that so we know how to do it. Maybe that's something that we want to add to our skill set because we like it and we enjoy it. But more often than not, there's a lot of things that, man, I don't want to do that part of it, but I know someone who can. And so getting the who's in your life in place to help grow your business is huge. And I think for a lot of us, coming from a public school background and a traditional background, right? We have to do everything by ourselves. We have to take the test by ourselves. We have to write the paper by ourselves. We don't get to ask questions. We don't get to pull resources. And for me, who's a very type A, like do it by the book, it's very hard to ask for help. But that's one of the things that I love about this community is you don't have to do it by yourself. And in fact, you're going to go so much faster and farther if you're bringing people along with you, because the whole, like that saying, all the rising tide raises all ships, right? We're going to bring everyone up. The other thing you kind of talked about is, learning those skills. I'm listening to a book by Bob Proctor right now. It's Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. And one of the things they're talking about is we have all this information within us, and it's just a matter of being able to bring that to the surface, and that takes help from others to help that rise to the surface. And so those are a couple of the things that kind of came to me as you were talking.
That's a huge point. And I want to make sure that your audience understands really what we're unfolding here, right? So there's a couple of things. First of all, we know it isn't always easy to ask for help, but you have to understand the biggest gift you can give to somebody. Let's say the biggest gift I can give to you is to come to you and ask you for help and then allow you to give me that help. That is a huge gift I'm giving to you. So one of the things that we want to make sure we train ourselves on as entrepreneurs is not only to be able to ask for help, but also be able to accept it.
Yeah.
Because that's really the true gift, right? Is to ask for that help and then accept it. And then you did make a great point that, all ships rise in the tide. So really, at the end of the day, we're only trying to make everybody's outcome better. So that's why I always like to think in outcomes, because I use weight loss as an example. If you have a goal to lose 5 pounds, we all know how hard it is to get started and we don't see that scale move. Now, if we change our goal of 5 pounds to having an outcome of living a healthier lifestyle, then we're making better choices. We're looking down on our plate. We're changing things out that we know that isn't going to serve us. We're probably walking more times than not. We might not be going to the gym, but we might be moving our body more times than not. And now we're making decisions from the part of our brain that makes our health decisions instead of going, oh my God, I have to lose 5 pounds. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, you're down 5+ pounds, but you had an outcome of living healthier rather than a goal of losing 5 pounds because I improved my sleep, I improved the way I eat, I reduced my stress. So I think I see that a lot in the real estate world. If people are open to not being so autonomous, not trying to do everything themselves,
Right.
giving the gift, letting somebody help you, and then growing from that. Because here's what I truly believe. People that have what I want and are doing what I want, they're not better than me. They're just doing it different. Once I figure out what they're doing different, then I got you. Because now I can mirror that and now I can be just as successful as you.
Since we're kind of touching on those mentors, right? And having people in your world that are doing the things that you want to do and having them mentor you, tell us how mentors have helped you along in your journey.
So when it comes to mindset, communication, how I present myself as both a business person and an individual, one of my biggest mentors is a gentleman by the name of Michael Burnoff. He is in Scottsdale, Arizona. He owns the Human Communication Institute, and he's really changed. It was kind of interesting because I went in there going, okay, I got to build my business. I've got to improve all this stuff. And what he helped me realize is, oh, the business is fine. What I really got to work on is my internal communication. How do I communicate with myself? How do I communicate with others? Once I changed the way I talk to myself, and once I changed the way I present myself to the world, then my personal relationships improved. My business grew tenfold. So all these things happened stacked on top of each other because I decided to kind of change my core values and go, look, I want to build relationships. I want to improve my communication. I want to have more influence on the world around me. And so that was one mentor, right? And then I went into the creative space and, Pace Morby and Molly Tennant became mentors in how I can structure creative deals, how I can do transaction coordination, how I can gator lend. And then, like I said, in 2024, I moved into more of a multifamily type scenario. And so I've tried to expand into other mastermind and mentorship groups that focus on multifamily, because here's what I believe about multifamily. A lot of people think it's because it's multiple doors, but really in multifamily, it takes multiple people on a team to run it. I'll give you an example. If I were to have a $5 million a year corporation, I would probably take about 25 to 30 people to run it successfully and keep it moving and get it past the $5 million threshold. But if I'm running a $5 million real estate business, now I've got 5 to 6 people it takes to run that same level. So again, even from a scaling standpoint, a real estate business is a lot easier to take a bite out of as a brand new entrepreneur than it would be to start a corporation. And so that's another reason why I've been investing a lot in mentoring around the real estate realm, is because I can do so much with so little, but I can create generational wealth in a way that everybody that works on my team, everybody gets a seat at the table and everybody eats. And that's important, right? No one should be discounted, no one should be left out. There's enough to go around for everybody.
In this space, that's the key too, right? The more that we can make those connections, build those relationships, the more opportunities we have that we can bring to them. And it's such a harmony that we can create and build from. So I love that vision that you have there. Now, if there was one thing, like looking back over the last 2 years, me and you kind of had your start, figured out what you don't like, which I think is a very important thing for people to find as well as what they do like. Was there one piece of advice that, man, if you would have had it at the beginning, would have catapulted you farther, or is there something that you wish you would have known sooner?
That's a great question. And I will tell you that here's the one thing I wish I would have embraced sooner. So you've probably heard of imposter syndrome, right? Whenever we get into something new, we go, oh my God, I'm not that good at this. I remember when I've tried stuff new. I know there's people out there doing it better. But here's what I've discovered about imposter syndrome. If I have that feeling when I'm going down the path, that's the universe telling me I'm on the right path.
I love
Because
it.
now I'm doing something that's going to make me grow. Now I'm doing something that's actually worthwhile and I feel good about it. So instead of using that as a limiting belief that would stop me and go, oh my God, so and so knows more about real estate than I do, then I come with two things. I come with a belief and I come with a value. My belief is if I spend enough time and energy into mastering something, I will master it. There's no doubt about it. And I also have a value that goes with that. And that value is I will walk into any situation open kimono and I will say, look, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. This is what I want to go after. And like you said, this is what I don't want to go after. And that's really important as a TC, right? Is to, when you're working with clients, here's what a transaction consists of and here's what it doesn't consist of, because it helps to manage expectations, right? So as I'm going down the path of wanting to be better at what I do, then I open up and say, look, here's what I don't know. And here's what I'm willing to learn, because I can always go back to my belief that if I want to put time and energy into that one thing that people are telling me I don't know, I will master it. But it might be that I'm not in that stage of my life yet, and I'm not ready to focus on that. So knowing what I do want to focus on allows me to improve. And I'm always moving around my core values, right? So when I was very unhealthy and I was 70 pounds overweight, I had to make health my number one core value, because it wasn't moving the needle. And then when I got my mental and physical health where I wanted it, I switched relationships to my number one core value. And I started building stronger personal relationships and stronger business relationships. And those turned into partnerships and other things that grew much bigger than I anticipated.
Right.
So really understanding what you can and can't do and what you're willing to try and not try are really keys to success. So if I had to go back to a version of myself 10 years ago and sit down and go, look, there is no failure, there's learning. And so making mistakes and learning is going to be part of the process. And if you're going down a path that you really should be on and it feels like you shouldn't, then you're definitely on the right path, because the universe is saying, this is where you need to be. Keep going down that path. I use this amazing analogy of going to the beach, because we can all relate to the fact that we've all gone to the beach, and no matter how much we brush off our clothes, empty out our shoes, shake out our towels, there's a pile of sand in our car and there's a pile of sand in our house, no matter what we do. Well, I think of experiences being like that, right? So I'm on an island, and that island is my comfort zone. And a lot of cool stuff happens in my comfort zone, except for one thing: growth. Growth does not happen in your comfort zone. So stepping outside of my comfort zone for even a small amount of time, I end up bringing all that sand back to my little island, and it causes my island to get bigger and bigger over time, because I keep depositing, more and more little piles of sand from these little experiences I've gone to. So the short answer to the short question you gave me after that big long response is embrace that you tried something new, be willing to collaborate with people that have not only made mistakes before, because that'll accelerate your learning, but also people that have been successful in that area as well. And that'll accelerate your learning tenfold. So I can mirror somebody a lot quicker than I can sit down and take a course and ask a bunch of questions.
And it comes kind of that imposter syndrome, like you talked about. This is something that I've thought about, and I've heard some different takes on it. And one of the ones that I feel like resonates most with me is that it's not that you're the imposter, right? And that you shouldn't be there. But it's really that you're just not confident yet, because you don't have the competence, right? It's that competence and confidence that needs to come together. Because, I can sit here and talk about, like, I worked in healthcare for a long time, right? So I can talk about a lot of things, medicine, different aspects. And I can talk on that forever, not because I'm super smart and way above everyone else. It's just because I've done it for 20 years, you know? And so for all of us kind of new into this realm, we feel that uncomfortableness because we're just not confident and we haven't built that competence yet. And so as
Yeah.
we keep going in, we put in the reps, right? It's about putting in the reps. As we continue to do that, that's going to build that competence, which is going to build our confidence. And now we feel like we belong because we do. And we're all on that same trajectory. We just have to shift that perspective just a little bit. Like, okay, I'm feeling that imposter syndrome because I need to learn and I need to grow in that area. And if that's something that you want to grow in. So I appreciate that point because that is something that I think we can all struggle with at some points in our lives for sure.
Yeah, 100%. You just nailed it on the head right there, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's and here's the thing, you can borrow confidence from things in your past. You
Yes.
can take things like your expertise in healthcare and make connections of what you did in your past to what you're currently trying to do now, or borrow confidence from somebody who's done exactly what you're doing and share like a third party perspective, and that gives you the confidence. Look, I might not have personally done it, but I've got a colleague, I've got a friend, I've got a relative that have done it, and this is what I've learned by watching them. So it can give you some additional confidence and credibility where you think none exists,
Right.
because we have this habit as humans to dwell on the things we don't know, and we forget to take victories on the stuff we've done in the past. So, for example, when I used to teach martial arts and I had to teach somebody a new technique in a higher rank belt, I try to link it back to something that they learned in a previous belt, because it's a lot easier to learn something when you can make a connection. Because here's what I've learned about humans: they just like to be reminded, they don't necessarily need to be taught. So if you can remind them where they've been powerful before, it's a lot easier for the brain to go, oh yeah, I can do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's huge because if you can borrow that confidence from another area, whether it's, from an earlier experience in real estate or from another realm, and you can borrow that and embody that and pull that
Yeah.
forward, man, you're going to be unstoppable. And you just have to kind of feel that confidence until you've really layered in the new experiences to have it in this realm. And it's
Yeah.
really important to be able to see that perspective. And you're right, we need that reminder that, like, man, you are so amazing in this area, we just need to pull it over into here. So that is huge and that is key. The saying, I've done a coaching course, and they took a twist on the fake it till you make it, because and when you think about that, that is kind of a negative connotation. That makes me feel like the imposter, right? If I'm faking something until I have to make it, right? Like that made me, once they pointed that out, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if that's why it's hard to fake it till you make it, because you're not vibrating at the right frequency, right? You're not in harmony with where you want to go." But when you can see it from another area and put that in your body and feel that in your body and then move it forward, man, it's a whole
Mm.
different power structure, right? It feels different.
And like you stated, your brain is always looking for evidence. So you're taking something from the past, applying it to something currently, and then your brain is building a series of evidence, proof that you can do it, and then it's reprogramming your brain to say, "Oh yeah, we've done that once. We can do it again." So I always try to tap. So your life is full of peak emotional experiences, whether positive or negative.
Right.
We have a really good process for remembering this bad stuff that happened in the past, but we forget we've got a whole gambit of prideful moments. We have a whole gambit of confident moments. We even have a whole gamut of just drop down funny. Like I had the greatest laugh experience with a friend,
Mhm.
and those are all the things I bring into when I have to go meet a potential investor or a potential client. As I go, look, I've got all these moments where I was proud. I got all these moments where I was confident. I got all these moments where I was laughing so hard I could barely breathe. And those are all the things that I bring forward, right? It's just I just do a quick exercise in my head. Who was there? What were people saying? What did I feel? What did it sound like? And I relive those peak emotional experience and I bring it to the current moment. And then that's the version of me that goes into a consult, or that's the version of me that sits
Right.
down with a client who I want to invest in my fund. That's the version of me. And if I don't have all those experiences, then I'll get on a phone with somebody like you and we talk and we get excited and then we share moments and we go, okay, I feel great. I'm ready to go. So because then at that point now I'm sharing, you're sharing your confidence with me and I'm taking that on and going, yes, I can do it. Kimberly's very intelligent. She's very capable. She's doing great. I know I can do great too. I just need to be able to match what she's doing and I've got it.
Yeah. It's such a powerful place to be when you can come into those situations, whether you're asking for money, whether you're asking for a client, and
Mhm.
you're not needy, right? You're resonating with this vibe, this energy. People are attracted to that. They want to be around that. That's going to be the thing that they're going to remember. They may not know, like you've said on a Zoom, they may not know exactly why, but the unconscious, mindset that you're putting off, they're going to feel that, and they're going to be like, I want to do business with him. He's got such great energy, right?
Yeah, and you make a great point. You're really talking to two parts of somebody's mind. You got the conscious mind and you got the unconscious mind. So imagine the conscious mind is everything enveloped in your house. That's your conscious mind, right? Everything in your house is what's going on in your conscious mind and your may or may not be thinking about. Now walk out your front door, circumnavigate the globe and come in through the back door. There's your unconscious mind. So that's the difference in scaling, right? But
Mm-hmm.
here's the point I'm trying to make. The reason why I'm telling you this is most people make an emotional decision and that comes from their unconscious mind. And they justify that decision from the things you say to them that they file in their conscious mind. So you have to be cognizant that you're talking to two parts of somebody's brain, and then you've got to get through what I call their croc brain, which is a survival brain that says, hey, is in the first 30 seconds, is what this person trying to tell me, is it going to harm me or is it going to help me? Once you get past that barrier, then now you're having a real conversation with someone's inner voice. And when you connect to them unconsciously, which is where tonality and body language comes from, and when you connect to them consciously, which is only 7% of your communication is the words you actually say, when you can encompass that and make somebody feel good, like you said, they might not know why, but they feel good communicating with you. They feel good potentially doing business with you, or more importantly, they just feel good about building a relationship with you. That's how you really connect with somebody in a non-superficial way. And knowing that my outcome in any transaction is to not necessarily bring them in as a client, but how can I leave them off better than I found them? And what can I learn from someone that might be able to help me in the future and vice versa?
And that's huge, right? This business really is about relationships, because we may meet someone and not do a deal with them for a year, but we've cultivated that relationship, we've nurtured it, we've checked in, and that's going to say so much more down the road, and people are going to want to keep doing business with you because like you care. And yeah, you bring great deals, cool, but like you're also a great person and they just want to be around you and want to work with you. So that is huge, building those relationships and cultivating that, whether right now is when you work together or 6 months down the road. Super super huge.
And I'll be honest with you, I've gotten a bunch of referrals from people that I've never actually done business with, but I've just had conversations like you and I, and it turned into a transaction through somebody else. They go, hey, I had this great conversation with a TC. He's also a sub 2 engager. Just have a talk with him. He may be able to help you, he may not.
Yeah.
And I go in with the same thing. Look, I'm not here to sell you transaction coordination. I'm just here to provide value. What questions can I answer? So you bring up a great point, Kimberly, and I know your audience can definitely resonate.
So mindset for you is something that's huge, and that's kind of why I was so excited to talk with you, because right, like that's the vibe I have too, and that's the frequency I like. And when you started really working on yourself, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, how that really shifted things for you. We hear this, your business will never grow more than you do. Tell me about
Yep.
some of the ways that you continue to work on your mindset. Like, what are you doing on a daily basis, throughout the week, every month, that's helping you continue to work on you?
That's a great question, and there's a couple of really cool tools I use. So first of all, I do what's called future pacing. Right, I've already laid out the next 6 months of what the future is going to look like, and so here's the fun thing about how a GPS works. Right, you got to tell it where you are, and you got to tell it where you're going, and then it's going to create a path. So I know where I'm at today. I know where I want to be at from 6 months from now. So if I lay my future out and say, here's what I'm going to be, here's what I'm going to be doing, here's who's going to be involved, what does it look like? Can I picture it? What does it sound like? What are the things I hear, and what does it feel like? Like, am I in the place I want to be? Yeah. So laying out the future is key. Next is setting my life in outcomes versus setting my life in goals, right? Goals are the things we quit, a couple of weeks into January. It's just statistically, that's the thing. So let's not call it something we're going to quit. Let's do outcomes, because at least in outcomes is either I'm going to achieve my outcome, or if I'm not. If I don't achieve my outcome, I just set a new outcome and I pivot. So it gives me a lot more control of things because I'm not so in a box that I can't get out of. So outcomes versus goals. And then lastly, I take ownership. I take ownership of everything, the things that go well, the things that don't go well. For example, if I were to get in my car right now and drive and get in an accident in an intersection, I could find 10 different ways to blame the person that ran into me. But I can also say, look, I chose to leave now. I could have left 10 minutes from now. I could have left 10 minutes ago. Had I done that, I would have avoided that intersection at that time. So taking ownership is key. So once I took ownership of everything, that was the game changer, right? Because then I could fix the things that weren't working the way I wanted to in the form of outcomes, or then I could take a victory lap for the things that have done well. Because if you notice, we humans have a hard time celebrating our victories. We always want to go from the finish line of one thing and go straight to the starting line of the next thing instead of doing a quick victory lap first. So those are the things that mindset wise I focus on, because here's the thing, whether you're in, Pace Morby's group, or you're in any kind of mentorship or mastermind group, having that data is only going to take you so far. Right. I mean, there's literally every tool in there. And when anybody comes to me and says, well, I haven't done a transaction yet, or I haven't bought a property yet, or I haven't sold a property yet, it's because some mindset thing has gotten in the way, because everything else in those mentorship or mastermind programs has everything you need, including the community. You're just not utilizing the community. You're not knocking out those limiting beliefs so that you can do what it is that needs to be done. Because I think you said it right about energy, right? I know everybody on this planet can give me a clear example of when they thought about something negative in their life and that negative thing happened. Right. So if that can absolutely happen, and it will, then why can't the opposite be true? Why can't I believe in something positive? Why can't I believe that I could be successful in this business? And why can't I believe that people will come into my life at the right time to help me based on where I'm at? And then I accept that help, and then I give that back tenfold. Then the universe gives me exactly what I asked for. So it really is that simple. It's not positive thinking. It's just knowing that that energy is out there. I've proven it. It's no different than once you fall in love with a car, you will see that car everywhere, because that's what's on the front of your mind. That's the energy you're putting out there. It's the same thing with business. It's the same thing with relationships. It's the same thing with anything you want to focus on, right? First, start by having that conversation with your unconscious mind that makes those decisions. So the first thing I do when I talk to investors, say, look, I want to talk to the part of your brain that makes financial decisions. Bam, the brain automatically goes there. They're ready for me now. Now we can have a real conversation. But if we're talking about the part of their brain that tells them all the reasons why they shouldn't invest their money because it's too scary, then neither one of us are going to go anywhere. I'm not going to provide any value, and they're just going to put their money in their mattress, which isn't going to do anything for anybody. If you've got kids and their brain is all over the place and says, let me talk to the part of your brain that likes to have fun, and then you start your conversation. It really is a game changer.
Oh, this has been so good, man. I've learned a lot from you. I've gleaned a lot. Like, we're going to have more conversations because you've got so much value to give. And I love that is really your focus, right? And I think this is probably, like you're saying, kind of the energy you're putting out will be the stuff that you bring back in. That's why you're successful. That's why you're doing so well, is because your focus isn't on, that goal, right? Your focus is on, how can I provide value? How can I give back? How can I add to you, whether we do business together or not? And that's really, that will come back to you because you're putting that out, and that will circle back to you somehow, some way. And a lot of times it's in a form that we don't expect and we don't see coming, but that's the exciting part about it, right? When you can help someone and it comes back to you tenfold in a different way. I love it. As we wrap up, what is one thing that you can impart to us to give us some wisdom of how, for that new investor that's struggling to really see where they should go, where they should be. How do they get that traction that they need to just get started? What advice can you offer?
Awesome. And it's going to be simple. And you guys are going to think, well, wait a minute. He's supposed to come with some complex answer. The simple answer is allow yourself to be crappy at it. Here's what I mean by that. How many times did we fall as a toddler before we learned how to walk? How many times did we fall off our bike before we learned how to ride? How many times did we get sentence structure wrong when we were trying to write a paragraph? We forget that when we were younger, there's a process to learning, and we never really thought about the fact that we fell down. We just got back up and continued where we left off. And then we became adults, and we became like our worst enemy. Like some of the things my unconscious mind used to tell me, if a stranger walked up to me and talked to me the way I talked to myself, I'd pop them in the mouth. And so realizing that you got to give yourself permission to be crappy at something, at least for a little while, and it's normal and it's okay. And to focus on one thing for even just a little bit of time. We make this mistakes of reading a personal development front to back. We listen to, an audiobook from beginning to end. We watch a podcast or a video from front to back. But what you really should be doing is you take the first concept they teach you, whether that's in chapter 1 or it's in the first part of the podcast, you push pause and you go practice doing that. And then when you go, okay, I get what they were teaching me, then you go back and you listen to chapter 2 and you go, okay, now I'm ready to learn the next piece. Because really learning without utilizing really does nothing for you. So you've got to take some kind of action. And confidence comes from deciding, making a decision and doing it. Even if it's not I'm not even going to say if it's a bad decision, because there's no such thing as a bad decision. Not making a decision is a bad decision, but making a decision that, hey, I got my outcome, yay, let's take a victory lap, or I didn't get my outcome, let's set a new one. So, practice being crappy at it, 1, and 2, give yourself some grace and let you focus on one little thing at a time and then build on top of that.
I love that. I thought we were going to be done, but I have lots of comments on that one. So in this book that I'm listening to, it's really actually a conversation between Bob Proctor and another guy, and they're talking about that. He said he had read Think and Grow Rich for a year or more, and he read it and read it and read it because he needed to internalize those concepts. And that is so paramount. Because like you said, it took us how long to learn to walk? We had to keep doing it and struggling and failing and falling and bumping our head until we finally got to a spot where we're like, okay, and then we can run. So what I would like to encourage everyone is it's okay to take that time to learn because then you will accelerate huge if you're putting that into practice and really harnessing those lessons, moving through it. So I really love that. And like you said, kind of focusing on that for a certain amount of time. Like if you're not good at underwriting and that's something that you really want to learn, dive in, put all your focus into that and do that for 30, 60, 90 days until you can look at a deal in 5 minutes and be like, yep, that's a great deal, or nope, I'm passing. Right. And that confidence comes because you put in the work and you put in the reps.
Or you might decide you don't want to be an underwriter. I know how to change my oil. I just rather pay somebody else to do it. I just know that about me.
For sure.
Yeah. So like I said, my business partner, she's a top tier certified underwriter. She's great at it. I don't need to, I know the basics, but I just need her to come to me and say, here's how you should structure the deal. And here's how you should go talk to investors. Great. Perfect. That's all I want to know. Right. Could I underwrite it? Yes. Do I want to? No. Could I change my oil? Yes. Do I want to? No. So there's certain things I'd rather pay for.
Exactly. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to knowing what you're good at and what you want to be good at and what you don't want to do. And that's huge. In the last week, like I really figured out something that I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that. And that was actually very freeing to me to be like, okay, yes, I see the point of that. And I understand there's lots of people doing it, but that I don't want to do it. And that's okay. It's okay to let those things go. Pay someone else to do that part of it.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. I think you're going to be a repeat guest because you have so much value to give. And I'm really thankful for the time, for the information that you've given to my audience. I appreciate you and hope to see you back soon.
Absolutely. And it might be fun to do maybe some kind of live Q&A sometime too. Maybe we can help some of your listeners that way as well.
Absolutely. Let's do that for sure. That would be amazing. I think everyone would find a lot of value from that as well. We had a little bit of technical difficulties here at the end, and we lost some video for those of you on YouTube. But Jason, thank you again for being here. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found as much value out of this as I did, and we will talk to you next week.